unmute, Devon.
Thank you.
There we go.
Welcome.
Do you have a PowerPoint, Devon?
I do.
No, we can't hear you.
I can hear him.
Is that better?
I can hear you.
Audio here. No, I'm still
Might be-
not hearing you.
It might be
Dad,
Karen's.
are you hearing Devon?
Yes.
I'm hearing you,
You
Karen.
can hear Devon?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear Devon.
See,
Devon.
it must be me. Now I can hear everybody. I don't know why
Volume.
that went off, but anyway. Devon,
Hey, Liz, how you doing?
I'm great. So Devon, is Peter there?
Yes, he is.
He has to go to the background and wave.
Oh, okay. Peter, you have to come and wait for Liz.
Karen,
Yes,
what is the PO
Yes.
box for the Rotary? Ames,
327.
thank you.
Okay, Liz, here he is.
Hey, Peter,
Oh,
how
I
are
see Liz.
you? Yeah, you see me.
Why don't you put Liz on big screen?
No, you don't have to. Peter, I told Bernice this morning that I would be seeing both of you on Zoom, so she's jealous.
Oh, wow. Okay. I saw her on Zoom at a meeting in May, I think.
Yeah, I know. I didn't get to see it, so it's good to see you.
Likewise, likewise. You've got quite the group there. Okay.
We do. So, are we ready to start, Chad? Are we supposed to be starting?
No, we'll wait a little bit here.
Okay.
Starting to only got 12 people so far.
Karen, you want
Peter,
to put me on share screen just to make sure that that works?
I have done so. Go ahead and try.
Is a picture of the Amazon River showing up there?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
You have to pick that out of your share screen.
How do I get back to that?
That's always the hardest part. Just get back to that big screen.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the PowerPoint. Go to your. Okay.
Now go to share screen. Now you have to pick your PowerPoint in there, and then you push.
There it is.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
Okay, good.
It's working.
Thanks, Peter.
I'm the Zoom guru here now.
Yeah,
Apparently.
Peter's been teaching all of his courses on Zoom, so he knows all the ins and outs. I don't.
Good thing you have a resource there behind you to back you up.
Yes, exactly. My tech guru.
Okay, I'll let you guys work.
Okay.
Don't go far though.
Morning, everyone.
How about them cyclones?
How about them?
Hello, Georgia. Hello, Dale.
Hi,
Woohoo. Glad to be seen.
All right.
Always good on this side of the screen. Okay. Happy day. Nice.
Karen, is that your cat's tail that we're looking at?
Actually, this is my neighbor's cat. But he spends most of the time at my house, so now he's mine. I don't care.
Okay.
And he's sort of the head cat of the tribe that I have. I have a cat. So, right, dude. Yeah. And I don't know why cats think that once you're on the computer, they just have to be in the picture. Can't answer that question, but I'm surprised the others haven't shown up. What are you doing?
Same reason they always have to lie on the newspaper you're trying to read.
That's true. So Devon, I didn't tell you,
Attention.
about 5 or 10 minutes, I think, for the start of our regular Rotary meeting, and then we'll switch over to you.
Okay.
So Chad is our president, and he will decide when it's time to start the meeting. And then this week, I don't know how it's going, we have 25 people who are sitting in our regular meeting room. Is that correct, Chad?
That is not correct, unfortunately. That didn't work out. So right now we're 100% virtual Zoom, and we
Okay.
have 49 people in climbing right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Georgia, did you have a question? Your hand was raised, so I don't know.
Well,
Oops.
unmute.
You are unmuted.
We're unmuted.
Yes, you're good.
I tried twice to change our location from Georgia to Georgia and Dell, and every time I change it, it changes back to the old way. Can you help me do that?
Ah, that's a good one. It's because Georgia has command over her iPad. She doesn't like to be changed.
Okay, I don't know whose screen I am seeing.
That's
Jean's screen.
whose screen? Oh,
Looks
Jean.
like Jean's. Jean, put that, we need to take down your screen.
Is the question to change the name of George's iPad?
yes.
So if you like, are you using a mouse? Georgia?
Georgia, you're muted again.
Okay.
Sorry, I do that a lot.
Are you using a mouse?
Yep.
No, we're just on the iPad as the touch screen.
So if you go to your box, like, do you guys see your video box with the picture of you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
And there, in the top right corner, there should be 3 dots.
Okay, that's in the top there of the iPad. Then it says chat, meeting settings, minimize meeting, virtual background, raise hand, and disconnect audio.
No, so it's not the whole screen. It's just your little individual box. And there should be like there's a blue mute button, and then there's 3 little dots. Just within your camera view of the 2 of you.
Now this thing about meeting settings up here. I don't know why that's there.
Well, I can work on this with you afterwards if we want
Yeah,
to.
Georgia,
Yeah.
if you want to stay on a little bit longer afterwards, we'll see if we can do that. We're going to go ahead and get started today. Welcome everyone to the October 5th meeting of the Rotary Club of Ames. It is officially afternoon. We have 56 participants now, and we are all 100% online, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But there's been one thing that seems to have been missing here from our virtual meetings, so we're going to try something a little bit different. If you'll all please stand wherever you are, and there's going to be a flag on the screen, I think, if Karen has that. So there we go. And we'll go ahead and start our meeting with the virtual Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm standing up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wonderful. My voice is still a little scratchy, as you can imagine, yelling when it was 40 degrees, and I had my nose and my mouth covered at the game, but it was well worth it, so I'll take the scratchy throat, having to put up with that for all of this. Now I'm going to mute and invite John Christie of our music team to sing us a welcome song. If you would, John.
Yes, thanks, Chad. And to our guests and visitors, welcome to you from Ames Rotary, Nové London or Gay Paris, from far off lands of the USA. We're glad that you are here today. Come back again whenever you're near. Join us and then we'll make it clear. Around the world you will always be welcome at Rotary.
Thank you, John. Typically at this time of our meeting, even before we get into birthdays, we have a moment where we remember those who might be dealing with some type of situation. Perhaps it's a member of our club or a family member of someone in our club, and I'm not specifically aware at this time of anyone that does need an extra thought. However, I think it's important as a club just to make sure if you did miss it, you could certainly search it up on social media. But how about them Cyclones Saturday, and how about the coverage by the ESPN Game Day program of the Jack Trice story, including our own club member, Jeff Johnson, who did a wonderful job. And Matt Campbell always talks about using your platform. He always talks to his team about using their platform, and what an opportunity to a national audience to be able to articulate Jack Trice's story. As you know, we're the only major college Division I program with a football stadium named after an African-American football player. And so that's all great. Jeff, thank you. You and your team and everyone who participated in that. That was very well done. And I would encourage all of you, if you have not yet seen that story, to Google that and to find the ESPN Jack Trice story. So with that, let's just take a moment for those who might need an extra thought, if someone you know of, but also just for, how about Jack Trice?
And then Chad, if we could, to regardless to people's political persuasion, let's also be in thought for our president, our first lady, as well as all families and individuals who've been affected by COVID.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. That's very good. Let's all take a moment. All right, thank you. A few other announcements. It's the first meeting for our October club meeting, and we have birthday announcements. So happy birthday to all of those. I think maybe hopefully Georgia's birthday present will be to be able to rename her iPad to Georgia Andell. We'll hopefully work that out at the end of the meeting. Happy birthday to all the rest of you that are listed there. In addition to that, a happy anniversary to all of you who may be celebrating an anniversary in the month of October. And here's our list of October anniversaries. So pretty good list there too. And then thank you for being a member. Look at this. Dwayne Sandage, 44 years. Jim Patton, I think I saw you on the meeting today, 40 years. And Tom Hertz at 40. So thank you for all of your loyalties to everyone here. Sarah Sams, thank you. 5 years, that's important. And Kelsey at 6, awesome. A few more announcements. Here we go. Before I jump into this, we are not at the Gateway, as you can imagine. So we did not quite have enough interest for a group of people to meet at the Gateway today and do a combination of virtual and in person. So we will work on that in the future. But in the meantime, we do have an opportunity to gather together outside, socially distanced and appropriately, hopefully masked, on October 19th at noon. We're going to convene at the Ames Miracle Park and Playground. It's at the Innis Grove Park. We encourage you to bring your own lunch and bring your own lawn chair. And we are actually reserving the Walnut Shelter, which is just adjacent to the west side of the playground. There are some picnic benches available. Again, just encourage you to bring a chair. We could gather and talk to be hopefully socially safe, and also just tour this amazing feature that our Rotary Club has donated so graciously to help bring to Ames. It's amazing, and we're excited to, as a group, to be able to convene out there again at noon on October 19th, if everyone could join us there. And we will not have a regular program today, but hopefully we'll have a few comments and words regarding that. Also, we have an upcoming tree planting. Thank you, Jim Patton, for keeping your ear to what's going on out at the Tedesco Learning Center. We actually have an opportunity here to help plant 40 trees and 60 shrubs. And it looks like it's scheduled for the afternoon and evening of October 29th. So what a great late fall project. If you have interest and you're available, there's Jim Patton's contact information there. And hopefully we'll have another email maybe that can go out where you could reply. But there, Jim, jlpatton.rotary@gmail.com, or his phone number. Love to see a lot of you out there helping plant some trees. And let's see, next announcement. I think we have another announcement coming regarding our Polio Day coming up here. Here we go. World Polio Day on October 24th. Kent Frankenfeld, I think if you're available, would you be so gracious as to unmute and talk about the upcoming Polio Day?
Yeah, it's tradition, obviously, every October that we celebrate our fight against polio, and this year is October 24th. And normally during the month of October, we do fundraising, and October is also traditionally our foundation month. This year, our foundation month will be in November, but we still want to encourage, obviously, contributions for polio, and specifically Polio Day. And once again, the Gates are wonderfully giving us $2 for every $1 we contribute. So if our club were able to raise $5,000, we would be giving out the equivalent of $15,000 in the war against polio. And as a special treat, we've been able, during Foundation Month, to get Paul Alexander, a polio victim, as our guest speaker. Paul is one of 2 individuals in the country that is still on an iron lung. Paul resides in Texas. Unfortunately, he's a Texas alum, so we'll have to see how that game turns out. And we will encourage Paul nevertheless. So it would be just great if we could share with Paul in his story and share of our contribution. So I'm asking anything that anybody could give and on top of what they normally might do, so as we're not doing normal fundraising this year. And polio is typically one of the 2 or 3 events where we do ask members to add an additional contribution. So if we could have members join in and write that check to Rotary and put in the memo field polio, then Karen will help tabulate those dollars.
Thank you, Kent, and thanks for arranging that awesome opportunity to hear from our speaker regarding the polio. I think the update that I saw this week is actually only 1 new wild polio case last week, and that was in Pakistan. So if we continue to support, as Kent had just talked about, the effort to eradicate polio, hopefully we'll be announcing many weeks and then years of zero wild polio cases, we hope. So that's the goal. Yeah, so I guess at this time, I'm going to invite Liz back to introduce our speaker. As always, you know, we encourage you to take some notes, just jot down some questions you might have, and then at the end, either raise your hand or type your questions into the chat, and then we'll make sure to hopefully get those addressed. So Devon, if you don't mind leaving, you know, hopefully 5-10 minutes at the end of your talk where we could ask you questions, that would be great. But we're excited to have our speaker. And Liz, if you'll go ahead and introduce him.
Great. Thank you, Chad. Before I introduce Devon, I want to point out on the chat notes that Sheila Schofer has brought a guest this morning. She has brought Sophie Johnson. And Sophie is the new development officer at the Ames Public Library Friends Foundation. So she's terrific, and I will be finishing my job with the foundation on Friday. So please, all of us, welcome Sophie. Okay, Devon. Well, I have yeah, thank you. I have a formal introduction for Devon, but as we do in honors, we never follow the route. So Devon Graham is my colleague and friend. I've worked with him for a long time. I don't know how long, but it's a long time. And I met him through honors. He came to visit us first as a person of interest in some of the programs we ran. And subsequently, he has been totally engaged in that. He is the president of Project Amazonas. And so Sheila, you're taking Devon's, there we go. Okay, there's Devon. Project Amazonas is a Peruvian American nonprofit organization dedicated to conservation and sustainable development and the improvement in the rural areas of the state of Loreto in Peru. I've actually spent a week with Devon and our team on his research station, or at his research station. I think this is correct, Devon, 21 hours up the Amazon on his research vessel, and then living for a week where you learn you don't touch things unless you can see what's on that surface, because you don't know what's on that surface. But more importantly, the work he's doing for conservation, but also rural health in the area, working with the communities around him, which are reachable by canoe down the river or by boat. But he also takes students So one of the things is when Iowa State has an extended winter break for a winterim and somebody wants to go down and learn about ethnobotany and ecology of the rainforest, I will help you get connected with Devon for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks on the research station. So I'm
For
going
a
to
year or two.
What?
A year or two.
Or a year?
I'm looking for somebody to eventually replace me.
Well, I'm not, yeah, right. Okay, so Devon is irreplaceable. This is an amazing project, and I'm glad that I have been able to get Devon to do a program for it. So I will turn it over to you now, Devon. Thank you.
Okay, is my sound level coming through okay? Okay, we'll do share screen. Are you seeing this screen? Okay, so thank you, Liz, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be able to talk with all of you folks. And a little bit more about Project Amazonas. We were established in August 1994. We're non-sectarian, non-political, registered in Florida, and at both the national and the state level in the country of Peru. We're pretty much an all-volunteer organization stateside. We have some permanent employees in Peru, but no office or no staff here in the US. Just a little bit of perspective for where we work. This is the Amazon, a picture about 2,000 miles from the mouth of the river where it hits the Atlantic Ocean, and you can see how big it is. And about 20% of the fresh water flowing into the oceans of the world comes out of the Amazon itself. So there's a lot of water there. Where we're located is the red star over on the left-hand side of the picture in the northeastern corner of Peru. And to give you a bit of a perspective for the size of the Amazon itself, we've got the continental US superimposed in that inset over there. So you're talking about a really, really big area. Our base is the largest city in the Peruvian Amazon, Iquitos. It's somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000 population, but it's probably the largest continental city that's accessible only by boat or by airplane. There are no roads to get to Iquitos from anywhere else in Peru, except for a 150-mile road that goes to a port on another river. That's it. All of the communities that we serve and the field stations are accessible only by boat. So that's one of the logistical challenges right there. A little bit more information. That light green area up on the top right, Loreto State, that's where we work. It's a little bit smaller than the state of California, and its population is a little bit over 1 million people, whereas the population of California is pushing 40 million people. So you can see it's a very lightly inhabited area, and it's, total population of Peru is somewhere around 33 million. That big area, which is almost a third of the land area of Peru, has only 1 million people. So you can guess who's on the short end of government funding when it comes to healthcare and infrastructure and things like that. Lima, the capital of Peru, is somewhere around 10 million. So 1/3 of the population of the country lives in the capital. So that's where a lot of the funding goes. Just a little bit of background on the COVID situation in Peru. 6th of March, they had the first case reported. On the 16th of March, the country went into total lockdown to try and prevent the spread of the disease. I got out 2 hours before lockdown. I had an academic group down there and we barely squeaked out in time. And today is the first day that passenger flights, international passenger flights, are going to start up again. So they've been in lockdown for a really, really long time. And I really thought it was going to be effective because they moved quickly and very decisively. I mean, there was no movement in the streets. Everybody was confined to homes. no boat service, no taxi service, no internal flights, anything like that. But as it turns out, the first cases in Iquitos were tour guides who had been in contact with European and Asian tourists. And they had obviously contracted it from, foreign travelers. And currently, Peru is the the highest number of cases per capita and the highest mortality per capita in the world, more so than the US. You can see down at the bottom, I just did a little bit of comparison, US to Peru. In the US, we've had a little over 63 deaths per 100,000 people. In Peru, it's 97 deaths per 100,000 people. And that is certainly a gross underestimate. I would say it's probably 10 times higher than that, because during the peak first wave that came through, the hospitals were crammed. Well, here you go. Hospitals were crammed. The health system was absolutely overwhelmed. These are pictures from the largest hospital in Iquitos. And a lot of people were dying at home and being buried without ever, being entered into any of the statistics. Same was true for the rural areas where, there was no way of knowing, how many people might have contracted the disease and gotten infected. And last month they had reports that up to 93% of the population of Iquitos might have been exposed. So that's an incredible amount. So if I'm right, and it actually is 10 times higher, that means 1 in 100 Peruvians have died from COVID so far, and counting. On the good news, the number of new daily cases is dropping dramatically. But again, that's probably because virtually everybody has been exposed. On the bottom right-hand corner picture, you can see oxygen tanks being lined up for use. Back in April and May, there simply wasn't enough oxygen producing capacity. A tank of oxygen was going for $2,000, which is more than many families make in a year, and that would last for a day or two. So it was pretty dramatic. One reason why it spread so fast in Iquitos is because of the geography. From this picture here, it's a satellite image of Iquitos, and within that area you have 500,000 people living. And down on the bottom you can see a 5-mile scale. So that's a lot of people packed into a very small area. The yellow line is the edge of the high water, or the edge of the floodplain. And then the blue and red lines are rivers that sort of constrain where Iquitos can spread. And then up in the top, you have the Amazon, of course. And here's some pictures from Iquitos. This is not the higher end part of town, obviously, but the houses are multi-generational. Poorer people build out onto the floodplain, the picture on the left with the shoeshine boys. And you can see they've got stilt houses out there and rickety little catwalks. There's no way you can social distance when you're passing somebody on a catwalk. You pretty much have to grab each other by the elbows and, swing around and then go on your own way. The market picture on the bottom is the Belen market, one of the biggest markets in Iquitos, and visited by many tens of thousands of people a day. Liz has been there. Some people are fascinated by it. Other people turn green and say, I've got to leave right now. You've got fresh meat, fresh fish, smoked monkey, whatever. Everything you can imagine is for sale there. But back in April, when they started testing people, 100% of the vendors in that market tested positive for COVID. And that's well over 1,000 vendors. And, with tens of thousands of people visiting the market daily, it was obviously a major, major super spreader. When they went into lockdown or extended the lockdown, the city came in and bulldozed it all. which had the effect of all of the vendors just spread out and had to go somewhere else. These are people that live in the informal economy. They don't have a guaranteed job. They don't have income. If they don't work, they don't eat. If they don't sell their products, they don't eat. You know, unless they're going to eat, you know, a bushel bag of limes or whatever it is. So it was very, very difficult for people to quarantine effectively and to social distance. And many of these houses don't have running water either. So, you know, maintaining adequate sanitation, washing your hands, you know, it's just impossible. And the water around there is highly polluted, raw sewage and everything else. So you're not going to be washing your hands in that. Okay, just a lot of people have a hard time understanding how, you know, the, oops, why is this not, oh, here we go. Well, this worked fine before, but the video doesn't seem to want to play now. I don't know why, but you know, I tell people that the water level in that area can go up and down by 45 feet over the course of a year, and it's hard to comprehend. This is one of the channels that we take when we're going to one of the rivers that we serve at high water. And the inset picture was taken with some fish collectors at low water in this very same area. And so you've got, you know, all of the trees in the picture at high water. Basically the trunks and a lot of the roots of those trees are underwater. And in that inset where you have the horizontal branches coming out, that's where the high water reaches to. So it's pretty dramatic. In the rural areas, things are even more difficult than in Iquitos, in the big city, just because, again, and because of the geography and the difficulty in, you know, moving around. This is the Ampiacu and Yaguas Yacu River area where we do a medical service trip each April during high water. And that's the only time that we can get all the way up to the most remote communities. Ancon Colonia up on the top, or Nuevo Porvenir way over on the left. During the dry season, you simply can't get in. There's not enough water. There's tree trunks and rapids and all sorts of things. These are pictures from one of the communities on that river. And the challenges that they face is every single year, most of these communities flood. A lot of them are not built on high ground. They're used to flooding. On the house on the right, you can see the high water mark halfway up the house. They depend on subsistence agriculture, fishing, use of forest products. The woman on the left is harvesting or processing palm fiber for making handicrafts. And they don't have any communications anymore. Originally, many of these communities had shortwave radio. Then that was phased out when the government put in satellite phones that worked very well. It was an Israeli company. But now in the urban areas, virtually everybody has a cell phone, and cell phone towers are up in the bigger urban areas. So the government has stopped maintaining and financing the rural areas. So some of these communities are trying to go back to shortwave radio, but there's nobody in the city to communicate with anymore that has shortwave radio. Here you can see floodwaters just starting to come up. You know, everybody builds up on stilts to start with, but exceptional flood year doesn't make much of a difference. Here's another community close by with higher water. You can see a little local or a little tower there for internet for the school, just a local area internet. And so if there's a medical emergency and you're living in one of these communities, it takes us 6 hours in our boat to go from Nuevo Porvenir over at the left to the next community, Tierra Firme. And that's at high water. At low water, you know, you could do it in a small canoe or something. But the closest clinic is over in Pavis, all the way over to the right-hand side of the screen. So it might take you 24 hours or 36 hours or 48 hours to get there. So when people have a medical emergency in these communities, basically, you know, they stay at home and either die or, you know, recover. Because, you know, they don't want to die en route or, you know, die away from their home. So it's a really tough situation that those people are in. If they do get to the clinic in Pavis, it has one doctor, sometimes two doctors. It has no surgical capability other than minor surgery, stitching people up, removing splinters, that sort of stuff. It doesn't have 24/7 electricity. It's responsible for 33 different communities scattered over several rivers. And so they're supposed to do vaccinations. They have one small boat that can carry 4 or 5 people. They need to keep it there for evacuation. If they have a serious case, they have to take them to Iquitos. So that basically means that they cannot get to these other communities on a regular basis. So that's where we help to fill in some of the gap. We have our own boat it was originally a wooden cargo boat, and we rebuilt it, and now it's all steel, but can carry 18 passengers plus the crew. We have a built-in pharmacy on board, and it gets us to where we need to go. The best thing about it, flat bottom only has a 3-foot draft. So we can actually get into a lot of places that even smaller boats can't get into. It's a 72-foot boat, so the cabins are not large, but everybody gets up on top deck anyway to see the scenery go by when the boat's moving. So even when we get to a community, there are challenges. We take medical students. These are from Florida International University. They come every year. Medical volunteers, we've had them from around the world. We work with Peruvian doctor, Peruvian dentist. Mud is always a challenge, and it sucks your boots off, as this young lady found. And most of the communities look a lot like this one. This is Yanayacu on the Apayacu River. So just, you know, houses scattered around, some thatch roof, some with tin roof. There's our boat up in the top. In this case, we had an academic group on board, and they wanted to incorporate a, They wanted to incorporate a service activity. So we got some materials, and we knew from previous visits that there were 3 people in this community who were wheelchair bound. And so the crew and the students worked together with the community members, and we built, in an afternoon, we built 3 wheelchair ramps and connected up this one house with a concrete walkway up to the concrete path that went through the community. So an opportunity to make a real difference for people with next to nothing. You know, we regularly see people at our clinics. Sometimes they can't walk, they can't make it up to the clinic. When we do clinic, we generally just take over the school or somebody's big open house. And sometimes there'll be a community hall that will take over, often open air. This gentleman had triggered an armadillo trap and accidentally got a shotgun blast into his foot. And so he had treatment already at one of the hospitals, and they'd removed all the shot, but he was still having infection issues. So we took care of him, and the guy in the white shirt down in the middle bottom, he's our Mr. Fix-It, can do anything guy, Segundo Rios. He borrowed a couple of boards off of a vacant house and made a couple of crutches. And when we came back downriver, the guy's son came out in a canoe and took the crutches back for him to use. So here's another view of one of the local communities, again, with the high water mark halfway up that house. And a lot of these communities are littered with well-intentioned and, you know, totally failed projects. We see lots of communities with wells that no longer function, pumps that don't work, or the water that comes out is just unusable. there wasn't an appropriate place to put them. The outhouse in the bottom is a great example of a project that was well-intentioned. They literally put in tens of thousands of outhouses in communities about 20 years ago, with the basic assumption that everybody had access to toilet paper. And that wasn't a safe assumption. I mean, there was no consultation with the local community members as to what they needed and what they would use. Outside contractors came in and they built a one-size-fits-all, even in areas that flood. When the water level is over the top of the toilet seat, a lot of good that outhouse is going to do you. But on the trips where we're going out to these communities, we meet a lot of people that, like this young boy here being held by his older brother with clubfoot. He's past the age where a meaningful intervention could take place, and they were asking us for a wheelchair so that he could, get around the community a little bit better on his own instead of having to be carried. And if we had been able to go this spring, we were going to be there in April or May. We would have delivered him a wheelchair, but that's going to be postponed for next year. This elderly lady here in one of the communities, I've known her for 25 years now. She's a widow, and she's suffering from Parkinson's. So, I bring her medication every time I get down there. And I just fear that when I'm able to get back, that a lot of these vulnerable people will no longer be there because of COVID. This young lady, we met her a couple of years ago. She was a twin. Her twin was perfectly normal, but she was born missing both forearms and missing one leg at the knee. She gets around. I first saw her and she was walking across a soccer field. And, she was basically hopping or going down on her one knee that was there, and then, pushing off with her other leg. She was mobile. But Rotarians in Hawaii, actually, through a series of coincidences, we got put in contact with them, and they sent us a pair of prosthetic hands. They've been making them for landmine victims, mostly in Cambodia, but other conflict zones. And so they sent us these prosthetic hands, and we were able to fit her out with those. Here she's holding a comb for the first time. Oh, the video does work. Okay. It took a little bit to explain how to actually use them and make the fingers grip and ungrip. But as a result of this, we have a student who came down a couple of years ago who's working with her bioengineering department to do a computer printed prosthetic device, which doesn't require the use of Velcro straps. You just slide it on, and then the pressure, if you pull back on it, it tightens up automatically, because obviously if you're missing both hands, it's really hard to manipulate Velcro straps and get them around your elbow. And I mean, I can't even reach my elbow with my mouth to be able to do anything like that. So we partner with a number of groups. This is Christ Episcopal Church group out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. They came down and helped us install a water filtration system at our clinic on the Erosa River. So now we can deliver, purified water, safe for drinking, to the local schools, and also some local sales for people who are interested at a very subsidized cost. At our clinic on the Erosa River, where there was none before, we partnered with Rivers of the World, which is out of Georgia, and with Nourish International, which is a college organization with chapters in many different universities. They actually did the physical building of the clinic, and we were able to, thanks to a generous donation, we were able to get a full dental chair. So now we can do fillings and proper dental care instead of purely extractions. And we're also working at finishing the financing of a portable X-ray machine, which would be the first one in the region. And that's something you can put in a backpack, hike for 2 hours to a community, take an X-ray, get the results right away, which is going to be a game changer. And we would also be able to use it at government clinics in the area. Right now, if they have somebody with a suspected fracture or broken limb or whatever, they have to send them all the way to Iquitos just to get an X-ray. One of the opportunities that we had this year was working with Wired International out of California to do some health promoter training. These are community health workers. And so they just today finished a 3-week training course at our field station on the Arosa River. Water levels were really low, so they had to transfer to smaller boats and push the boats through the shallows to actually get to the field station. They're on their way back to Iquitos right now. Most of them are from rural areas. These are the areas where they're from. Some from way upstream from Iquitos, most of them from downstream. But tomorrow they'll be taking a final exam for a couple of hours, and then they'll receive certification and a certificate, and they have the option of maintaining their certification by taking a refresher course every year. So this is something exciting that we want to continue to do in coming years. And of course, we've got to keep our own staff busy when we don't have anything else going on. So they've been planting trees and doing facilities upgrades. These are pictures from a couple of our field stations. And also being able to send our regular dentists down to the clinic a couple of times to do dental campaigns. This is an aerial view of our field station at Madre Selva, thanks to the 15-year-old high school drone operator who came down with an academic group. Yeah, our challenges going into the future are just to see how we can improve our resilience in the face of, another epidemic, record drought, fires, record flooding, anything like that. We would love to be able to expand our services. Telemedicine would be a huge thing at our rural clinic. If we had internet, that would be a big thing. Maybe with the Starlink system, that will become a reality faster than we know. Engage with more partners, do more grant writing, which I hate, and do much better with social media, which I also hate, but I've got help on that front at least. So, but anyway, thank you so much for listening. If you want to check out our website, the URL is at the bottom. I've got a blog up on, the details of the COVID situation in Peru and also the community health worker training. Plus, there's a lot more pictures and whatnot.
Thank you, Devon. That was a great presentation. I'm sure there's some questions that our members have, and I don't know if I can see many of the hands raised. I don't see anything in the chat yet, but Devon, how long have you been involved in service in the Amazon right now?
I went down the first time in September 1994. And, for the first few years, I would go down in the summer, and then I just ended up spending more and more time. And, up until the start of COVID, I was spending basically 6 months of the year there and 6 months here in Florida.
And then obviously COVID pending, but Liz asked, when are you planning to return to Peru?
Well, I have an airplane ticket that I bought mid-December last year that's going to expire if I don't use it by mid-December this year. So if there's promising news on the vaccine front, and if caseload keeps going down in Peru, as well as here in Florida, I'm thinking of possibly going in mid-November, but that's totally up in the air still.
Another question is, do you have problems getting materials past customs into Peru?
There are ways of doing that. Basically, every time I go, I have something conspicuous and bulky that I claim. I pay customs duty for it. They look through the rest of the stuff, and then they wave me through, and I don't have to go past the X-ray machine. And I'll take a solar controller or something, and I've learned the art of distributing things between, multiple pieces of luggage. So, but we do buy as much as we can locally, and quite frankly, a lot of the medications are much cheaper to buy down there than they are here in the U.S.
Another good question here. What health precautions do you take personally? Vaccinations, and what other precautions might you take?
I'm up to date on all my vaccinations. And that's pretty much the only precaution I take. I'm not a fan of taking anti-malarials because I would have to be on it year round because of the frequency with which I travel. If somebody's going down just for 2 weeks and it's a one-time thing, then yes, I would definitely recommend that they take anti-malarials. But I would literally be taking a pill every day, and I know what the symptoms are. It's treatable. I haven't had malaria in 26 years of going down there, and mosquitoes bite me. I don't react anymore. I mean, I don't itch, scratch, or anything like that. So,
Liz is asking about your class on the Everglades and teaching that course.
We stopped teaching that after 20 years of teaching that course. I know, don't be shocked, Liz. It was getting too hard to get students who had an all-day Friday free because the university here is really pushed to make sure that students get finished in 4 years. And so more and more classes are being scheduled on Fridays, hybrid courses, and it was very difficult for the students to be able to fit it in. And so we figured, 20 years would be good. And as it turned out, that was the year that we had the government shutdown for much of the fall, which would have meant that we couldn't go to Everglades National Park anyway, and then record heat and all the rest of it. So it was a timely end. I mean, we miss the students and we miss doing that, but I still get to take a lot of students to the Amazon. I get academic groups from all around the country. And one of my favorite memories from years ago was having a group of high school students from one of the Ivy League feeder schools, the places where tuition for a 10th grader is $50,000 a year. And we had visited one of the local communities, and that night we were just lounging around, and I heard on an open wooden platform under mosquito nets with mattresses on the ground. And I overheard one student tell another student, "I'll never complain about my school again." And, I figured, yes.
We had a request here. It looks like your videos in your presentation were working. Is there any way you could flip back to that first video with the river side? Is there a way to maybe get that one going?
Let me see.
And while you're working on that, someone asked if you could just remind us of your background.
Okay, if I can get this working. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that coffee-colored water is the normal color for rivers with a lot of sediment in them. So that's the Amazon always looks that color. For other rivers that come out of white sand areas, they're black. They look like tea without milk. My background, I'm a tropical biologist. I did my degree at the University of Miami, did field work in Costa Rica. And I didn't expect to stay in Miami, but I did. My parents are Canadian, but they drugged me around the world when I was a kid. I lived for 6 years in Africa and then went back with the Peace Corps in Africa for 2 years. And I remember reading books about the Amazon when I was a kid in Africa and thinking, wow, I'd like to go. And also thinking that I'll never have a chance to get there. It's so remote. You know, what's the likelihood? You know, it turns out that the first time I flew to the Amazon, there was a direct weekly flight from Miami to Iquitos, 3.5-hour flight. That was it. It's so much closer than people imagine. It's not nearly as remote. I mean, those flights all got, those airlines went under because of money laundering issues. So now you have to fly through Lima, it's 5 hours from Miami, and then an hour and a half back to Iquitos. But it's really not as remote as people think in terms of access, but it still is truly remote if you're living out in the rural areas.
And then Jeff asked the question that I had on my mind too. When you're looking at this river, you can't help but wonder. You mentioned challenges with communications and flooding and transportation and medical needs, but you forgot to talk about the snakes and the snakes and the piranhas and the crocodiles and everything else.
There are piranhas in every river. They are basically a Hollywood myth. People eat them all the time. We always go fishing for them when we've got a group because it's a thrill for everybody to catch their own piranha. And the cook will take it down to the kitchen and gut it and fillet it and fry it up. You know, so everybody gets their picture of the man-eating piranha or woman-eating piranha. They're really not a danger to people. There are snakes. Basically, a person is bigger than most of those things. They don't want to tangle with something that's larger than they are. Although last year there was a kerfuffle when some of the medical students were swimming and one of them was up on top of the boat and a large anaconda made an appearance and there was a lot of screaming that went on, but a really large anaconda is pretty rare. We do have pink dolphins and gray river dolphins. People, see those every trip, and there's certain places where they hang out and you can get off the boat and go swimming. Yeah, they won't come close. It's not like they're tame animals, but I mean, the biggest issue for most people are biting insects. But sunscreen, insect repellent, appropriate clothing, takes care of that.
Poisonous frogs is another one that Liz just brought up. Any poisonous frogs?
Only if you're licking them, Liz.
And then another question, we'll just leave that to our last question here, is how evident is deforestation happening in the rainforest? Because you'd mentioned you are planting lots of trees. Can you talk about that just for a minute?
Yeah, in the Peruvian Amazon, it's not nearly as bad as it is in the Brazilian Amazon or the Bolivian Amazon. And part of the reason for that is the lack of roads here. I mean, if you look at, let me go back to one of those maps. It's really, really difficult to build roads here because of the extensive river networks. And you can see in the picture down there that the rivers just meander everywhere. And with 45-foot rise and fall in river levels, you would have to, build really high bridges. And there's no stone either. This whole area is sediment. You got to go 1,000 feet down before you hit rock. So, putting in foundations for bridges and roads, very, very difficult, very expensive. And so everything has to get transported by boat. In Brazil, Bolivia, places where, all you have to do is extend an existing road. You don't have to, it's a drier area generally. It's a lot easier to deforest there than it is in Peru. We do see it in Peru, though, especially in the immediate vicinity of Iquitos, where people are clearing land for agriculture, serve the city market. And the trees we're planting, we're basically reclaiming old pasture land, old agricultural land that we've acquired and added to one of our reserves. So we're focusing on high value trees like rosewood. That was the seedlings you saw. mahogany, things that, you know, could turn a very good return to local landowners if they keep them, and, you know, 30, 40 years down the line, their kids, their grandkids can sell those at a very tidy profit. So we're working with the landowners in the areas around us to distribute those high value tree seedlings to them as well. And it doesn't mean that it's taking away from their own agriculture. There's always, you know, steep slopes and swampy areas that aren't appropriate for agriculture anyway, so they can plant some of these high value trees rather than just letting those areas grow up to brush and, you know, jump starting the regeneration process essentially.
Yeah, Devon, thank you so much, and thank you for all the good work you do. Thank you for taking time to share it with our club. Thank you, Liz, for the introduction to Devon and bringing him in as our guest. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us.
You're most welcome, and if anybody has any additional questions or wants to get in touch, you know, just go to the website and you can find me there.
And what was the website again?
Let's see, way down at the end here, www.projectamazonas, all run together, .org. Right down at the bottom of the screen there.
There we go. projectamazonas.org. Thanks again.
No at symbol.
Oh, yep, no at. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Next week, club, we have, looks like Kelly McGowan, editor of the Ames Tribune, will be our guest speaker next week. And also we'll do the Zoom meeting next week. And then, you know, quote for the day, I thought this was fitting just because of what we talked about leading into this and because of the platform that Iowa State had to share a story. So my quote for the day is this: my thoughts just before the first real college game of my life. The honor of my race, family, and self is at stake. Everyone is expecting me to do big things. I will. My whole body and soul are to be thrown recklessly about the field. Every time the ball is snapped, I will be trying to do more than my part. Fight low, with your eyes open and toward the play. Watch out for crossbucks and reverse and runs. Be on your toes every minute if you expect to make good. Signed, Jack Trice, of course. So thank you, everyone, for a great meeting. And we'll end our meeting here with the four-way test. In all that we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And then Georgia, if you have a minute, can stay on with, and maybe hopefully Kelsey can help you figure out your name change. Thanks everyone else.